PM Express. My name is Stephen Enti, your regular host. On Thursday, 7th February, the President of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, moved the seat of government from the Osu Castle to the Flagstaff House, bringing an era to an end. Now, since our 1957 independence, the business of governing this country was held within the stone walls of the pre-colonial castle overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. As the president and his staff settle in the Indian-supported multi-million-dollar edifice, we'll examine the implications of the contentious move. We will also look at the fate of the iconic Osu Castle. The president says it will be turned into a tourist site. Is that the best future for the castle? And is that the only one we can imagine for the former seat of government? There is also the issue of management, considering that the Ghana youth are saying the keys to the castle should be turned over to them, even as the site that the Cape Coast Castle is the castle is managed by local authorities in the Central Regional Capital. Now, this PM Express, we will talk to KB Asante, who is a retired diplomat and secretary to the late Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the founder and first president of Ghana, who envisioned the Flagstaff House, and also to the Gadangbe Youth Association president, Nima Mamakwe, to find out if there is any substance to their claim, especially considering the historical antecedents of the castle. So, gentlemen, it's great to have you on PM Express, and I'm glad to be in your home, KB Asante. So, the castle, and then moving from the castle to the Flagstaff House, what would be your comment about the move itself?
I think many people who comment on it or consider it are not aware of the history of government in Ghana. Christiansburg Castle, Osu Castle, was a seat of government in colonial days. And it continued after independence. The governor, Sir Charles Albert Clark, became the Governor General. He used to run the country from the castle, and he stayed there as Governor General. Later, we built the State House, where his successor, Lord Listowel, the Governor General stayed. Now, all this time, Kwame Nkrumah was the Prime Minister. He wasn't President yet. And he decided to run the government as a Prime Minister from Flagstaff House, which was a seat of the British commander of the Gold Coast. So, in effect, Osu Castle was not the seat of government when Nkrumah became president. He was then in Flagstaff House. Now and again he used Osu Castle or the Christiansburg Castle, but the seat of government, especially from 1960 until the coup, was Flagstaff House. And that was why the military who organized the coup attacked Flagstaff House. And it was ably defended by Colonel Zanrigu. He didn't get support for various reasons, and therefore he gave in. But Flagstaff House was a place which was attacked, not Osu Castle, because it was a seat of government.
Right. So for you, I mean, moving from the castle, moving the seat of government from the castle to the Flagstaff House is a good thing, right? I mean,
no, I won't say it's a good thing. That was the only, let's put it this way. When the coup occurred, there was no Flagstaff House. Nkrumah's offices were either burnt or destroyed. Books were scattered here and there. And so the Osu Castle had to be the seat of government. And governments since then have used Osu Castle. If now we are thinking of going back to the origins of independence and go back to Flagstaff, it's rather going back to what it was. It's not that big a change.
Yes, okay.
And it's a good thing we have a place properly built for the president. I'm not happy with it, but that's another.
Another discussion.
Yes, in that I would have loved this nice edifice to be, or rather the president's office, to be the subject of competition between our architects. And then one is chosen, and we build the residence of our head of state to reflect our own culture, our artistic viewpoint, and so on.
So you don't see the new edifice as a structure which reflects our artistic.
Well, they've tried. There's something which look like a stool at the entrance. I'm not happy with it, but they've tried.
But you feel that if Ghanaian architects were involved in the design in the first place, it will reflect a lot more Ghanaianness than it is now.
Yes, but that is an old man's talk. The thing has been built.
It has been.
We have to use it, and we are using it. We've got to make the best out of it. It's not a bad edifice.
Okay.
We've been quarreling about the name and so on. Again, I don't think much of it, whether you call it Flagstaff House or Jubilee House. In fact, there are two major entrances. One where the stool is, you can call that Flagstaff House entrance. I suppose that's where the office is, entrance to offices. And the other entrance can be called Jubilee House. Where the president lives can be called Jubilee House. The offices can be called Flagstaff House. And then everybody's happy. I think
so. For you, the whole contention about Jubilee House, about Flagstaff House, is neither here nor there.
No, we can call it. It can have both names. As I say, the one near TV3 could be the residential entrance, can be called Jubilee House, and then the other one, which was a proper Flagstaff House, that was what was that was entrance to Flagstaff House. The road which leads to 37 General Hospital and so on. That's where I went in every day when I was working there. It was a powerhouse, and it was known as Flagstaff House.
I see. So let me come to you, Nima Mamakwe. The Gadangbe youth is laying claim to the former seat of government, the Osu Castle, and then you have made a request or perhaps a demand that it should be returned to you when it's no longer in use as the seat of government. I mean, on what basis are you making this claim?
Okay, I think that notion is not clear, because we never said we are making claim of the facility. What we are saying is that when the facility is going to be transferred, it's going to transfer to the Museums and Monument Board. And Museums and Monument Board, looking at their structure and looking at their record in terms of managing museums in this country, they have not done well. But we are saying as a Gadangbe youth that we have the expertise that can run the Christian Board Castle better than the Museums and Monument Board.
What kind of expertise do you have?
You need people with tourism expertise to do that.
And you have
we have them. We have very good people who have done very well in the tourism business in Ghana, who are Gadangbes. Okay. And what we are saying is that when you are looking at what government want to get from the Christian Board Castle, the Museums and Monument Board cannot give them that. Because Museums and Monument Board, what they do is that they only sit down, wait for people to come in, and they take their money. But what we are saying is that we have the expertise who can run the place better than what Museums and Monument Board is doing. That was the claim that we made. But we were not making the claim that they should give to us.
Okay, so you were not making a claim based on the fact that you feel that you had some right over the castle because it's in Osu, for example.
No, we haven't made that claim. We haven't made that claim.
Okay, so let me understand. In the event that government decides not to listen to your, more like a request or plea, what will be your posture?
It will be a little bit saddened, and it will be a little bit worried, because government is looking for serious revenue. We were discussing with Dr. Kevi Asante this morning, and he was talking about investment. Always government is running outside to go and look for investment. The investors are here. You don't need to go outside. And what we are saying is that there are a lot of thousands of people unemployed on the streets of Accra. What do you need to get the people out of where they are? You need to create employment. If you are running a castle like the Osu Castle, you need so many innovations to make sure that the castle runs 24/7. Because at the moment, the Cape Coast Castle and the Elmina Castles are running like 12 hours or let's say even 8 hours a day. What they do is they sit at the gate, wait for you to come in and pay. But what we are saying as experts within the Gadangbe Youth or the Gadangbe Council in tourism is that we can run the property 24/7 and make more revenue for government. And at the end of the day, it's not just running the seat of government or the Osu Castle. But when you look at the history of the Christianborg Castle, there's a history between the Danes and the Gadangme people. There's a history between the Portuguese when they took over with the Gadangme people. There's a history between the
Let's slow down. Where do you trace that history?
There are several books. Read the Ghana of Ghana. Read the Gold Coast and Ashantis. There's a book called Coast of Slaves. Read those books.
So what's the linkage?
The linkage is that when the Danes came to have an establishment or build a trade post, they went to the Ghana people and they asked them to give them the land. They gave them the land. And there were several relationships. You will see that there's a shrine within the Christianborg Castle. Why is it that the Danish didn't move that particular shrine out? Because they know the importance and the history behind it. So they left it there. Apart from that, there were several marriages that went on within the castles or within the European and the people of Accra. Those history need to be told. And when you look at the current situation now, those history have been showed off. There's a house in Osu where a Jewish was brought in, and he was like, oh, slave trade is no good and all that. And at the end of the day, what he did was they bought some of the slaves and gave it to him, sold them, and he made more money. He made a direct access into the castle. So instead of going through the merchants, he goes direct into the castle and do his business. These houses have been nominated by UNESCO. And UNESCO is a body that makes sure that international heritage monuments are preserved. So what we are saying is that connecting that particular house and other several houses within Osu, if you give to Museums and Monument Board, they will just look at the Osu Castle as an entity and they will sit there and just get people to come in. But we want to get a collaboration between the Osu Castle and other structures that round it that makes Osu Castle better, because you can't talk of Osu Castle without talking about the rain doors. You can't talk of the Osu Castle without talking about the hills, the chinneries, or the shandors and the rest. We need to get all those people involved and let this thing work. And we are saying that looking at the experience or the records of the Museums and Monument Board, they don't have the capability, because what they are doing is that if you go to Cape Coast Castle and the Mina Castles, like I said, they just run, and even just look at the museums at Accra, the National Museum. If you go there, it's just empty. And you need to bring in a lot of innovations to make sure that this castle stands very well. And apart from that, we have to look at even the independence, like Dr. Kebbi Asante is talking about, between Nkrumah and also the rest of the presidents that have ruled or governed from that area with the Gadangme people or with the people of Accra. And that is the most important thing that we, as the Gadangme, you feel that if this thing is given to not us but as a merge between us and the Museums and Monument Board, we are going to make sure that we transform the museums, the Osu Castle, into better use. Because let me just come in.
Yeah, sure.
You know that there are wells within the castles.
Yes.
So with the wells with the Christianborg Castle, what happened is that the Europeans were harvesting rain, and these wells served the whole castle. So count the number of people who went through the castles. At a point, they can store about 400 to 500 people at the castle. So if 400 to 500 people at the castle at a point, just the slaves, plus the merchants, the priests, the officers who are working over there, let's assume it's about 1,000. They were able to supply them with water. And how did they do it? It's just they harvest rainwater. Osu now is suffering, or Accra is now suffering from water. So at the end of the day, if the castle is given to a private venture or a private entity, what is going to happen? The private venture have to come in and make sure that this water or these wells supply water outside of the castle and make sure that the castle have enough. And just behind the castle, there's a lagoon, the Clotte Lagoon. The private man is interested in making sure that, because the slaves were taken through that particular lagoon before they got into the ocean. How do we revive the lagoon and make it real, so that at least when we are doing something like a reenactment of a slave activity, we can use the lagoon to get into the ocean? This is very important. But the Museums and Monument Board, like I said, they only sit and never do anything.
I mean, I was Dr. Asante, I was born in Osu. I grew up in Osu. When we were growing up, we used to swim in the Kole behind the Clotte, behind the castle. That appears to be dead now. Does it worry you, really?
It does. Like most things in Accra or Ghana are becoming dead. I mean, we should revive them. When you say it's not alive, as they say, the water, we don't have water, electricity cuts and so on. It is compounding the issue. Now, I agree with my friend that perhaps it's not, if you turn Osu Castle to the Museum and Monument Board or such institution as a tourist center, it will go. It will be even more dead than some parts of Accra.
But the president's directive is
no,
that
why do I say
should, yeah.
You go to Kumasi, the cultural center, it thrives. Apart from that, no museum or anything thrives in Ghana. Now, and Christiansborg Castle, if you leave it to a museum or any other body, will deteriorate. In my view, it should be used as a government, still as a government residence. Tourists can still visit it. It's done in many countries. We can have, say, on Mondays or Tuesdays, certain days, when tourists will go, pay sums, and visit certain parts. They'll be taken on conducted tours, and so we have it. But it can, it should be reserved as a house where the president can entertain, can have certain functions.
Keep his guests, maybe.
Yes, state visits, for example. It should be the place for state visits, where the residence of a visiting head of state for a day or two. Normally, real head of states don't make state visits for more than 2 or 3 days. He can live there, and it will be kept properly. I shudder to think what will happen if we try to house a head of state in the president's house. Let's be frank. We have a different way of life. And no matter what you do, the president will have children and so on, parading the place. It's not right. So let's keep this place as a residence for visitors or heads of state on formal visits. And that will make us keep it clean and proper all the time. The president can also have certain ceremonies there. Let's think. We have so many advisors around the president. Let them think and come out with an idea which will make us keep Osu Castle proper and also make use of it. To turn it into a museum and give it to a body to do it, whether private or Ghanaian, it will not work. I know Ghana. It will deteriorate. So let's get rid of the idea of turning it into a museum in the normal sense of the word. If it is used as a place for the president, as I've stated, one of his houses, it can still serve the purpose of
a tourist attraction.
A tourist attraction where students can go, visitors can go, and there are certain parts where they can be chaperoned to go, and then we charge them fees, which will enable the place to be properly kept.
Dr. Asante, let's talk a little bit about the history, more of the history of the Osu Castle. There is this infamous history that the original keys to the Christiansborg Castle is resting with the Akwamu people. What's the history behind this?
I think my memory is it's getting old. But what I know was that they took over, this Akwamu chief, took over the castle and grew from there for some time. And when, then there was a sort of an agreement, and he had to leave, but he carried the keys away. Perhaps my younger friend will be more
so what happened was that the Akwamu chief, Asamani, came to the Christiansborg Castle to buy ammunition for his warriors. But when he was coming, he added on all his Asafo group or the warriors to the castle.
So he deceived
the Dutch, the Danes. What happened was that when they bought the ammunition, he told them that he needed gunpowder to test the ammunition. So they gave him the gunpowder, and right away in there, because he had his mind that he wanted to kick over or kick off the Danes from the castle, he started firing, and the Danes have to run away. He ran the castle for about a year, and they went into gentleman agreement, and he had to move out, and he sold it out to them. But when he was going, he took the original keys of the castle to the Akwamu. So they have to rechange the keys within the castle. But that is on the lighter side. But if I want to add to what Dr. Kevia Asante said, that he doesn't believe that we should use it as a museum. That is a good point. But at the end of the day, even when the president was there, for the past 40 years or so that the president have lived there, the presidency or the Christian Broadcasting is deteriorating every day. So whether now that the president is not there, that means that it will deteriorate more. So if you give it to a venture that is ready to manage the place and make money out of it and pay people and employ people, maintaining the place will be better, will be 100% better than when even the president was there. Because at the end of the day, the behind the castle, which is now like a shanty town or maybe a ghetto, can be rid of, because the private person have an interest to make sure that it protects everywhere. Because when you are running the tour of the Christian Castle or the Osu Castle, you can't just run the tour within. You have to run the tour around it and also even to the community. Because like when you go to Elmina Castle or Cape Coast Castle, they have what they call the Elmina Township tours, where after you've done the Cape Coast Castle or the Elmina Castle, you can go and do the community tours. And during the community tours, you need some kind of environment to run the tours. And that is why I'm saying that it will even help to regenerate or
regenerate also
Ashanti area, and also regenerate the Osu Klote behind the castle, because it's also part of the slave the slave trade that went on within the castle.
I don't buy this idea of private enterprise doing it better and all that. If we didn't maintain Christiansburg Castle properly when it was seat of government, it's an indictment on us. It means we should change. It means we do the same with Jubilee House of Last Sabbath.
It could be worse.
And we should learn to maintain our heritage, to maintain our buildings and so on. So that is no argument.
Well, we're watching PM Express, and the word advice is that we should learn to maintain our national heritage. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to PM Express, and I'm here with Dr. KB Asante, a retired diplomat, and Nimama Makwe, who is the president of the Gadangbe Youth Association. We're discussing the move of the seat of government from the castle to the Flagstaff House. So, Dr. Asante, let me come to you again. What are your memories of the old Flagstaff House?
Oh, they are interesting fond memories. I worked over there for about 6 years, and I had to be in the office every day sharp at 7:30, because Kwame Nkrumah was there at 7:30, and you have to be there at that time. And you work around the clock, more or less. You work from about 7:30 till 1:30 or 2 when he leaves for lunch. You have to be there. There were 3 of us in the with him. And you have to be there until he goes away. He leaves for lunch between 1:30 and 2. In the afternoon, he leaves us free a bit. You can, if you are lucky, come and eat, have a siesta, and go back at 3 or 4. Then he does other things. He doesn't demand our presence that much. But sometimes, again, in the evening, you have to work. But the interesting thing was that you were working all the time. You didn't have time to think about your own private problems. Sometimes you go to the office. In the morning, I go to the office. I'm asked to prepare a draft. By 8:30, once he looks at it and he says, "Oh, now I want to get this idea to President Modibo Keita in Mali." And then you said, tomorrow. Then he said, no, perhaps this morning. Why don't you get a Caribou? We had the aircraft called Caribou. So I rang the Air Force. And by 11 o'clock, I'm on the way in the air going to Mali. And when I come back, my wife would not know where I've been. She would guess, because I have some wine in my shoes. Then she knows that, she got to know that I've been out. It was interesting. Sometimes you are sent away for days on end, just like that. And there was always something interesting to do. You were trying to build the new Ghana, big Africa, and it was exciting. And the people around in the larger Flagstaff House, where old TK Imprim held sway, were also very hard-working. The secretaries were good, and so on. I have a nostalgic feeling for those days. And things worked. If a telephone is down, I ring Mr. Koram, and he comes and is dealt with. electricity the same. I wonder what would have happened these days if Nkrumah were alive and electricity was cut.
That erratic.
So erratically, you can't, and your machines go haywire. We're talking about industry and development, and then somebody has started doing something small with electricity, and then you cut it off. You want him to buy a generator which he hasn't catered for. If he buys a generator, you go bust. And then we talk about the country not being developing as it is, surely. So I have the feeling that in those days we did work and enjoy ourselves. And I'm wondering why my friend Mama is here, so they want to run the castle and so on. And I'm sure they will do it well, but I don't think much of what is happening now with even our services like electricity, water, and so on. It's all terrible. And we have so many bright young men in charge. They have been to school more than I have been. They've been to university, they've got XYZ, PhD, this and that. And it's terrible what is happening. I'm afraid. I'm glad I have this opportunity to hear it so that they will hear. It's terrible what is happening. And we were partly responsible, perhaps because we didn't hand over well. And in those days, Flagstaff House was a powerhouse. And when we spoke, people listened. Perhaps we did it too much of that. And now people have to work and get the country through its difficulties. And it seems because we don't have that central authority, I don't think a central authority is necessary. We can still work to put Ghana on its feet. On its feet. Right now, we have the men. I have traveled a bit around the world, and I've yet to see a people which are more intelligent than Ghanaians. And I've yet to see a country which has more natural resources than Ghana. And yet we are where we are. It's terrible. So I look back to Flagstaff House days as a days of progress, days when we were self-confident, self-reliant, when we wanted to develop the country on our own, not always to ask for partners to come and help. They can help, but that is not the part of the matter. We should try to develop ourselves, do things ourselves. We should have confidence in ourselves and realize that whether education, whether it's health, whether it's development, we can do it. We have the men and women to do it.
So in your time at the Flagstaff House, tell me what infrastructure or what constituted the Flagstaff House? Yes. The living quarters, the residences?
Nkrumah was there. He had his house and office. And there was an inner wall where the three of us worked with the secretary and Nkrumah. Then behind it, you have the Flagstaff House proper, where you have the deputy secretary of the cabinet, more or less in charge of that area, TK Imprim. Then you have so many brilliant young men, Chimbwa, your Beechams, and so on, over there, who worked on specific issues. Now, Kwame Nkrumah found the system sometimes creaking, didn't move fast enough. So he tended to create duplicates of ministries in Flagstaff House. For example, financial matters were dealt with from there with Ayekumi.
But wasn't that problematic?
Yes, but he consulted some of the senior civil servants like Phillips and others. The same with health. For example, I had to deal with health matters now and again. When I told him that it wasn't my job, he got a bit angry and told me that any job he gave me was my job. So I had to find a way of interacting with those involved and do the thing properly. Because all he was interested in was that what had to be done was done. And so, in fact, instead, in this where I would blame Nkrumah, instead of getting the ministries, all the ministries to work according to his temple and his ministers to work in that way, he tended to duplicate some of the functions in Flagstaff House. So Flagstaff House became the powerhouse. It was a center of activity. It was Central who gave orders and so on.
So when he needed medical attention, how was he taken care of? I mean, I'm asking this on the back of the fact that the Flagstaff House is very close to the 37 military hospital.
No, he called the doctor in question to come.
So there was no tunnel from the Flagstaff House to the 37 military hospital.
My own classmate Dudu now and again was called. In fact, his children went to. He had a special school where he got some people to be with the children so they could go to school. One or two of them were doctors. No, he didn't. He used the medical system, but as often as possible, he called the doctors to attend to him. But he wasn't strange enough to think of it. He was practically all the time fit. Yes.
That possibly reflected on his lifestyle, right?
Yes, because and that made me realize that work never killed. He rather thrived on hard work, and he infected that sort of disease.
You are still working. And,
yes, he made us work. You work round the clock, and you feel happy, and especially when you got the leader who inspires you, who had a vision that was creating a new society, a great Ghana, that although we are from a colonial era, we shouldn't be colonial any longer, and that we could do better than the colonialists themselves were doing. And in latter years, he was so much against what he called neo-colonialism, where although independent, some African countries tended to rely on their former colonial masters and on Europe and America. Nkrumah did not say that we shouldn't not rely, use these big powers when necessary. For example, Akosombo Dam was built more or less with American support. Nkrumah appealed directly to President Kennedy. It was the World Bank which gave the money and all that. But Nkrumah knew his politics, so he got the Americans to support it. That was why it succeeded, and so on. So that was what he wanted. He wanted investment, but he believed that if you should look at your country, what you want, and if you want investment, try to ask them to come and invest in a particular area, and make it possible for them to work there and to make a little money, because eventually, if the investor doesn't make money, he will come, he will go away. And all this talk about investment and so on, we should say to it that when they come here, they can work and make money. That if they want to try a commodity, it shouldn't take 10 years for the Standard Board to give them the all clear to sell their goods and so on. I'm mentioning Standard Board not because I think they are bad, but because it just come to mind.
Yeah.
Our institutions make investment difficult. That is what we should do. Going around to ask people, investors to come is good, but the main thing is to get the country right for investment. If you do that, all over the world people want money, and they will come here to make the money if the investment climate is correct.
I mean, I know that the Gadangbe Association in general has had a lot of issues with land ownership, for example, and you've argued severally that government lands which were taken from your people and are not being put to good use should be returned to you. I mean, the castle is in Osu, the Flagstaff House is in Osu. Do you feel that the Ga youth or the Gadangbe people in general have not had a fair share or appreciation for such landmarks like the Jubilee House and the castle being situated on their lands?
Absolutely yes, because if you look at the investment that these two edifices or most of the land that were taken out are brought in, you see that the people haven't had a fair share. But what is the trust of it? It's because policies like Dr. Kevin Ansati have said, institutions have no work. Because if you have a lands commission that cannot regulate the land administration in this country very well, you're going to have problems. We have always talked about this issue about if you took the land from one person and you said you want to use it for cocoa farm or you want to use it for cassava farming and it's no more in use, as the law says, you return to the person. But what is happening is that you have a situation whereby even when you return, it doesn't go on well. So why don't you put the proper structures in place? And Dr. K.B. Asante was even the Land Committee chairman recently when we had opportunity to meet Lands Commission. And there was a proposal that was saying that, okay, this is a committee, and it's the same thing that we are talking now. This is a committee that is going to help you to manage the land very well when it comes to Accra. Government goes back and say that, well, we don't want to have any association with the Gaddafi. Dr. K.B. Asante is an old man. Let him go and sit down. He's a retired diplomat and all that. But the fact is that if you have a system that is broken, you need to revive the system and let the system run. So at the end of the day, what we are saying, especially with the Christian Board Council or the Sikh Council, is that you have an institution like the Museums and Monument Board. They've not done well. Go to Manshia Palace. It's run by Manshia, and they are doing very well. Dr. K.B. Asante gave another example of the cultural center in Kumasi. Look at the people running the place and go to the cultural center in Accra, not just Accra, but go to all the cultural centers apart from Kumasi, which is working. All the cultural centers in the country are not working because we have been trying to detach the government aspect of running the place into a team that is expert in running the thing. I've made an argument and I said, if you are this country, we had an independence, we have elections and all that. We elect an attorney general who is a lawyer with maybe 15 or 20 years experience. Why is it that when you are trying to elect somebody for the tourism ministry, then you just go and pick somebody from anywhere? Tourism is a big business, it's a big institution. Dubai is doing very well in tourism. Spain is doing very well in tourism. Egypt is doing very well. Way back in the 90s, the budget for tourism in Egypt was the budget for Ghana in 2001. Just the tourist revenue that they got, the tourism revenue they got in Egypt way back in the 90s, was the whole budget for Ghana in 2000 or 2001. What is happening is that people don't see the tourism industry as a major sector for this country. It's the third foreign earner. But when you're picking ministers or you're picking people to run the business, you just pick. The last time we picked somebody like Juliana Azuma Mensah. And at the end of the day, look at what happened. Today, we used to have more tourists coming to Ghana way back in 2000 or even in the 90s. We used to have Panafest. We used to have emancipation and all that. All those things have gone down because we don't have people who are running the thing. The private people who are running tour companies are doing very well. I could give an example where there was a World Tourism Organization show. A company which have an office in Ghana have to go and represent Ghana in the tourism show. Why? Because the ministry doesn't see it as important.
So your point exactly is what?
Our point exactly is that put the expert in place so that they run the edifice or they run the properties or the institutions better. So if we are saying that give the Cape Coast, the Osu Castle to a private venture with connection, because government is always talking about private partnership participation. So if the PPP is working or should be working, then get people involved. Let the supervisory body, which is the Museums and Monument Body, supervise, but let these people run the institution or run the facility so that they will generate revenue. Now we have the single spine structure. It's taking about 70% of Ghana's revenue when we generate into paying salaries. Where is government going to get the money from? Government needs to create the industry, create the enabling environment to let this thing work. So at the end of the day, if the Christian Board Castle or the Osu Castle have passed through several hands and you have huge history to tell, why do you want to give the same institution that do not give you money, but you always have to go and even look for money to go and pay them? Then partner them with a team that will let the institution run and run better and make more revenue for the country. All that we need is revenue and employment. Our people are being said that, oh, go to Osu, you see the boys sitting there playing cards, playing drafts and all that. Why do they have to play cards? The Osu Castle, we will have a souvenir shop in there. There will be several restaurants. There will be other events, parks and other things in there when a private person is running it. That is the thing that we are talking about. So if we are saying this, we don't mean that give the property to us. We are not saying we are demanding the property. Every time they say the Gadangme people are very notorious, they are rowdy, they don't have saying. Are
you notorious?
We are not notorious. We are not rowdy. We lay the issues as it is. If you have taken my land out from me and you are not using it well and you are not giving it back to me, I will not be happy with you and say that, okay, just give the land to me. You have to.
The important thing is that they are not using it well. The law, what the law says. You take land. The law, I don't know what the law now is, but in those days, the government had the power to take portion of land, say, I'm using it for national purpose. And you have to give it up. Then the lands people value it and they pay you. And the same law says, if later we don't want it for the purpose or all of it, you get the first option. All that we have to say is to go by it. And as for the running of facilities, you see, the experts, how do you train the experts? They come from institutions. So we should, the same with the civil service, public service, all these institutions, they all have a culture of their own. The people start from the beginning and they come up. Experts are bred internally. Now, we don't do it. When a new government comes, very often they kick off at first the top. And so we don't grow. Now, the same with the civil service. Where did we? I haven't been to XYZ to learn about management, blah, blah, blah. But I can tell you that I could hold my own here on outside when it comes to money. I learned from my seniors and so on. And the rules were there. If you abide by them, you learn. And that's what made Ghana. And as for the talk about private, yes, I know Ghanaian private enterprise is good. Only the other day I was talking about Ghanaian private enterprise, Adada, which gave us Okansi Cinema and African Morning Post, the paper which rocked colonial Ghana. Azikiwe became president of Nigeria, was the editor. They were all Ghanaian enterprises. Even many do not know. Achimota College, when it was being built, it had a private company to build it. They folded up. Gagisberg was a strong personality. He asked PWD to finish it. And they did. Not much had been done. They finished on time. Recently, George Sisandwe, where Parliament is meeting, I had a little row with President Nkrumah. I said we should use the university or somewhere else for the conference. He disagreed. He wanted George Sisandwe built in less than a year, and it was done by Ghanaians. We built the conference, the big conference hall where Parliament is now meeting. We had the banquet hall and the main building, which we've taken, I think, 20 years to decide what to do with it. Now I think we are going to give it to parliamentarians and so on. What's wrong with that? We can do it. Let's have the confidence in us that we can do it. And if it's a question of tourism, there are people who know something about it. If it's a question of transport, we have people who know something about it. And they can do it. Meanwhile, the institutions must grow. And they can only grow when you respect their culture. When you come to power, you don't just sack the top. If the person is bad, you sack. If it's not, let him do it.
Well, this is PM Express. My name is Stephen Anti, and you heard Dr. KB Asante and Nima Makwe. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll explore this culture of institutions working efficiently for our country. Stay with us. Welcome back to PM Express. So Doc, we were talking about institution culture. When you look at our governance structure in general, from the time we reintroduced constitutional rule in 1992 to today, and the changes in government that have taken place, do you feel that if Nkrumah was still around and the Nkrumah system was still with us, we would have been a better country?
Difficult, but on the whole, I'll say yes. Because he had learned. Now, when Nkrumah came, he wasn't with civil servants. As a matter of fact, one Dr. Yusuf Akwe was the first to be sacked, Chief Medical Officer and Director of Medical Services, and eventually got to know that he got the wrong information, that his ministers wanted him to buy all drugs from a particular company, and when he refused, they told stories about him to Nkrumah and he sacked him. After that, he didn't. In fact, we didn't sack any civil servant again until the so-called Apollo 580 by Buzia. But what I want to stress is that even Nkrumah wasn't happy with the civil service structure. Later on, he discovered that they were necessary. He thought the ministers, most politicians thought that civil servants were too big in their shoes. So before then, they were called, the head of the civils of a particular ministry was called a permanent secretary. We changed it, I think it was Nkrumah changed it to principal secretary. So they get rid of the idea that they were permanent, that they could be removed. Well, and that went on. But later on, Nkrumah learned to work with the civil service. And he was making headway. Only the tempo, he want, as I said the other day, he always wanted something, he tells you something to do today, and he wants it to be done yesterday. And that was a problem.
He had a lot of urgency in getting things done.
Do
you still see that with our modern crop of leaders?
No. You can take 20 years, and I don't think they will mind much. I may be wrong, but that's what I see from outside. They, you know, generally, to work for a country, to take a decision involving millions of people, you have to be very careful. You've got to take time. And the civil service, we have been brought up to realize that you cannot run your ministry as you run your own house. There are so many problems. You've got to think about it. You've got to use your officers, ask for views, let people write minutes. You can make fun of it, but it makes you realize. For example, the Attorney General's office, I know, when even if you bring the president as the Attorney General to do something, the normal thing, he gives it to the state attorney, junior man, he writes his minutes, it goes up to the chief state attorney, then the Attorney General sees it. And he or she may decide to go by the advice or go against it, but at least he has seen the advice and he writes his conclusions and he moves. Now, we have also problems. You go to court, ask what happened, Attorney General's office, no records. I mean, it's ridiculous. It means we do, as we say in good Ghanaian English, we do so many things by heart. In the civil service, you don't do things by heart. You get the views of your subordinates and so on, and you think about it. If what you are doing has repercussion or is connected with another ministry, you consult them, and you have interministerial committees and so on before you work. So it takes time to evolve a policy or a project involving a ministry. And if you do it properly, things progress well. And Nkrumah, in my view, although he was in a big hurry, eventually learned that you got to trust and work with the civil service. What rather he found difficult was his own ministers. He found them, not all of them were as alive to the problems as he was. So sometimes he went behind them to work, and some of them didn't understand. Even the army. He got General Alexander to identify to him officers who were capable of becoming generals or leaders. And the Ghanaian officer, senior, did not know it. I got involved. I was accused of promoting the interests of my friend when Nkrumah called me and sent me to Uganda with a military officer who was only a captain. I didn't know him. And I was sent with him. They said I asked Nkrumah to choose him. It wasn't true. And he became a general later. A young man became, but he knew. And he did the same with the civil service. Sometimes he calls some, not junior, but who were not
upper
the most
middle or middle officers and promoted them.
Give them ginger, pep talks and so on, and works with them. Because he was always in a hurry. Not all the ministers were so
much in tune with following his directives.
You'll be surprised. Those who know the history of that, you'll be surprised that one of the few was in tune with him. What's wrong? What do you say?
So, Nimawa, let me bring you into the equation. You've seen our governance system working and some say not working. And in all of this is the issue of land, like I discussed with you earlier. What are you hoping that new governments, I mean, we have the Mahama administration, we've had the Kufuor administration. What are you wishing to see? What kind of transformation are you wishing to see from the side of government involving traditional owners of the lands which bring wealth to the people?
Well, you see, this matter is a very big issue. I was talking to someone this morning. If you have been to Tamale, they're having similar problems in Tamale. I went to Tamale with a friend, with a prominent person in this government, rather. And we drove, we went to go and see the cousin who has given birth. We went 3 junctions, and all the junctions, they've built houses on the road. So we couldn't even go straight into the person's house. We have to go and stop somewhere and walk. The issue about land in Accra and in the country is that, like I said earlier on, the Lands Commission is not doing well by managing that particular office. And if we always sit down and try to wait for institutions that are under government to do things, that is how it's going to happen. Look at even the private estate developers. They go into the land, they buy the land, they develop it in the way that it will suit them. Today, everybody wants to live in Trasako. Why does nobody want to live in Dansoma Estate or even the Audome Estate? Because the infrastructure there has broken down. And who is managing it? State Housing Company. So at the end of the day, if we want to run things better in this country, let's get people, like Doctor said. Sometimes Nkrumah will not wait for the civil service or the ministers. He calls people behind them and put the work into their hands and they deliver. If you are president, doesn't mean that if it's an institution or it's a government agency, they always have to do the job. Get people and let them do it, because you want the country to run.
You also mentioned that the management of the castle was poorly done, even when it was a seat of government. And so if the same attitude is maintained for the Jubilee House, it could be worse. Is this something that you agree with?
I do agree partially, because at the end of the day, like I said, I've been in the private business for a long time. I do private work, and people give you job and they expect you to deliver, and I take my pay at the end of the job. I don't go, if you go to government to run business or to do contract for government, they give you some kind of allocation to go ahead and do it. We don't get allocation, so you have to deliver. If they said you should be there at 6, you need to be there at 5, because you may not know when your business partner is going to appear, or the person either will delay. So what is important is that if the castle is being given out to Museums and Monument Board, and you have a private partner that is ready to run the place well and make profit, for the private partner or the private businessman, what he or she needs is to make profit and pay staff.
You made that point clear already. What I need to find out is whether you think that the Jubilee House, the new seat of government, will crumble if government's attention to maintenance and attention to ensuring that the right things are done are not put in proper focus.
It will crumble. I don't think it will even take us a year. If the media is serious and they want to follow the issues at the Flagstaff House, there should be a journalist who is interested in just the maintenance of the Flagstaff House, and just give yourself even 6 weeks. You will see the cracks. Not the cracks in terms of the building, but you see the loopholes and the other things that will not run. Because I mean, just water. Now we don't have water running.
You have something you want to say.
The important thing is that, you see, we don't know our history. I'll give you one. Achimota, when it was built, it had a maintenance department. I was there. They started from what we call the Eastern Compound, Girls' House, painting and looking at breakages and damages. Every week, every dormitory in Achimota, you were asked to send your list of breakages and damages. We even nicknamed one prefect, breakages and damages. And you send them to maintenance. They came and repaired it with that window, whatever.
So what happened? Suddenly, we don't have these even in our schools anymore.
Yes, maintenance department was there. Achimota was there was a painting division, and they start. It's a big place, so they always paint it. They start from the Eastern Compound. It takes them over a year or more than 2 years to get to the west. Then there were those who were mending things, and it went. What happened? Just before independence, we said it was too expensive, so PWD was going to do it. So the Achimota, I was on the council, so I know that we fought against it, but it was difficult. The maintenance department was more or less jettisoned, and now it's there. It's a shell. You see it near the swimming pool. What do they do? Now there's nothing there. And the school is deteriorating. In fact, but for the support of Parent-Teacher Association and old boys and girls, many parts of Achimota.
But I mean, the infrastructure of Achimota has totally broken down lately. Yes. I mean, if you go there, or if you have a ward there, there's nothing to write home about.
And Steve, like I said, if you go to the Flagstaff House now, because we are doing water rationing, there may be times that water will not run through the taps in the Flagstaff House. Definitely, people have to use the washroom. And what is going to happen? They have to, the government or the one who is in charge will say, okay, we're going to call the tanker to supply us water. That is not the issue. The issue is make sure water runs 24/7. How would you sit down in the country and one machine that or one treatment plant will broke down, nobody talks about it, 2, 3, to the point that 4 of the treatment plants are broken down.
Yeah.
And
in the Roman's days, the one in charge will be sacked.
Totally sacked.
Total. You see,
nobody has been sacked yet.
Yes, exactly. Talking about the maintenance, you see, the experience. I said we don't go to a park. The actual experience shows that you must have a maintenance department in the Flagstaff House. Now, if it's only 2 or 3 people whose job it is to see where a major work is to be done, then they contact the department concerned, the big department concerned, to come and do it. But you must have, in a big place like the Flagstaff House, you must have a small maintenance team, as we had in Achimota.
What about security?
No, you know, at the day the president moved in, even journalists who have their pass couldn't go in because their computer that is screening some of the journalists is not recognizing them. Yeah, so that tells you that the system broke down the first day the president entered into the Flagstaff House. And at the end of the day, what is going to happen is that somebody will be sitting there and will not be doing anything and will not be fired. What we, the youth, are saying is that if government want to see real business, they should just give us 1 year. If you are not able to perform, they should just
transform the castle into an enviable edifice. Where the government might like to move back from Flagstaff.
That would be better, because it's better to, like we said earlier on, it's better to have a government for 4 years than to have a government for 8 years which doesn't do anything at all, believing that, oh, with propaganda and everything, they are doing very well.
Dr. Asante, let's talk politics. I see you are interested in sneaking a little bit of political concerns into all this. I mean, the elections which we finished in December is still hanging because the MPP has a petition in court against the outcomes, but still our governance system have to run. Are you worried that this development...
It's a plus for us. It's a plus for us. Some time ago, now, if you look at the number of people who voted for the government against, the margin is small. And therefore, if the leadership of the opposition had decided something very silly to go to town, they would have gone following. To me, we should congratulate ourselves and both government and opposition that the matter went to court. And it will be instead of getting the people on the streets to go and demonstrate and do other things. Okay. It's a difficult situation. We are told that even to go to Flagstaff House recently, the machines didn't work. Now we are blaming Afarijan that things didn't work. Blah 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 blah.
It means the systems break down.
The systems break down.
We should be patient with it.
I'm not speaking for him, but the point is we had a problem. There's no doubt. Look, I have been involved in elections since independence, and I'm telling you that there are always some very dubious,
what Gas will say, kululu things around
things which happen, and therefore I'm not surprised. I won't be surprised if at the last election certain things happen, but it shouldn't be the cause of a mayhem in the country.
Dr. Asante, let's shift our attention a bit as we wrap up and talk about security at the Flagstaff House. There is concern that the French embassy is right over the wall of the Flagstaff House, and then nearby is a media house, TV3, and then nearby is a major road, and then the hospital, and then the GBC infrastructure is also right in the vicinity. Are these security threats enough for us to take a second look at the president?
Are they threats?
Staying there.
Are they threats?
I wouldn't know.
Where is Buckingham Palace situated in London?
Right in the heart of the city.
So you talk about TV3, this and that. Why are they? I know of. I've been in Belgium. The president's house is on Main Street. So
Downing Street is on the Main Street.
The security people are there to secure us, if I may put it. That's their job.
It's their job.
Anywhere you put the president, there'll be a security risk. Even if you have the best security, he must go from the castle to somewhere else to do something. there's a security threat. Now, as for the question of the French embassy being there, it was raised much earlier in Kromanstad, before they finished building, and they were asked to continue. To me, the way we deal with diplomatic missions, those of us who have a little bit, we are not happy at the moment. Look at where the American embassy is. It's more a threat to national security than where the French embassy is. That's my view.
Why do you say so? Where the American embassy's location? Why is it so much of a threat than when? Yeah.
We destroyed streets. I knew that area very well. You go to America, anywhere else, you have your embassy. Even if you want to park, you have a problem. The diplomatic mission. Here, we jettisoned our plan, and streets were destroyed, and they built a house, a huge edifice. Now, if there is a problem, and they are in the center of the city, with some of our most important personalities living around, and if I don't say they shouldn't live there, but it takes too big a chunk of the area,
right?
And if there's any big uprising or attack on America, it will affect so many people, and you never know. Al Qaeda and all these people, they are there. You don't know when they may strike.
Right.
So that is a threat not to.
So I mean, the security questions surrounding the Flagstaff House must be dealt with by the security people.
But that's why we pay them.
So Nimama, I mean, let's wrap up. What would you want to say when it comes to your request for the management of the Christiansborg Castle after all the staff of the presidency have been moved out?
We want to believe what the president has said, and want to say that the president should have a belief in the Ghanaian, and not just the Ghanaian, but the Ghanaian youth. Because in their government, they've said that they're going to give the youth the opportunity to be around.
So they should give you that.
So they should give us the opportunity. And like I said, if they should give it to us for just a year, and we can't prove, they should just come in. Even if they would like, they should just imprison us, because we have said something that we couldn't do.
Dr. Kebbi Asante, your final words.
My final words are the Osu Castle should still be used as part of the president's housing scheme, and even if and that does not mean that people cannot pay visits to the castle, but it should not be turned to use solely as a museum.
Thank you very much. My name is Stephen Enti, and thanks to you for making time with us on PM Express.